those are members of the ANC. They will stand automatically in the list of additional NEC members. If they get elected, they will get into the NEC. So nobody has lost. It's not about individuals, it's about the ANC.
Nobody has lost?
Yeah, well, that is it. You don't say that post factum. You say that prior to, and nurture and endanger that among the people. It's the foot soldiers that I'm more worried about. This academic engagement and discourse has yielded nothing. Deep down there at the basement, the foot soldiers themselves, they see this at a contestation, and then they are now triumphalists. And as they go back to Limpopo, Northwest, and wherever, they go there to assert themselves and somehow even met vengeance and revenge. And that's what worries me. And I think, let's be fair to the Secretary General's report. He's mindful of that. And he does state unequivocally the sources of the contention. Remember, it's not so much about ideology. It has more to do with access to the resources. Now, if you were to take me out when I'm almost about to capture the Victor's Cup, I may create problems for you. Hence, he said, some are the members of the members, and the members are held captive. They must reward those who assured them that they assume office.
But your sense, is it, given that they have now been re-elected for a second term, doesn't that give them a bit of room, perhaps, to actually deliver on the things that they perhaps weren't able to deliver, in part, well, probably because they wanted a second term, so that they can then do a lot of the things that they were perhaps unable to do post Polokwane?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the American president, his first term is to learn the job. It's only in his second term that he can start implementing things. And I think South Africa is a complicated country. Governing a modern country the size of South Africa is a difficult job, and you take some time to learn that. Although you've got a lot of resources and you've got a lot of things to assist you, it takes time to learn this thing, yes, in their second term. And I think what they'll do, after the commissions and the policy decisions were made, they will now determine their own priorities. That's what the 75% gives them, is to determine the priorities and to show direction.
And you think they'll be able to do that?
Well, I hope so. And one of the things that is positive, if you look from different vantages, is the deputy presidential role that Cyril Ramaphosa will play. It was a funny message that Trevor Manuel gave when he said he's declining a nomination at the NEC. But we shouldn't forget that Trevor Manuel, that Cyril Ramaphosa was the deputy chair of that commission that actually developed the National Development Plan. So the champion of that plan, or at least the second champion of that plan, now sits in the top 6.
Let's talk about the Cyril Ramaphosa's comeback. Prof, what do you think it's going to introduce to the leadership that was there? I mean, Baleka Mbete was there, Gwede Mandashe was there, Jacob Zuma was there, and he together with Zweli Mkhize and Jesse Duarte are the new guys. But what specifically is Cyril Ramaphosa bringing to the party?
Well, look, it's a highly respected politician and a business person. He's coming to an environment that is caustic, beset and fraught with challenges. Will he be given space to perform, to deliver up to his optimum? That is the challenge for me. There are contesting interest groups and stakeholders that seem to detract and divert those who have got a clear vision and a commitment to serve. And they ultimately find themselves having to deal with internal contradictions and contestations. The man has ability, has potential. Theo mentioned something. We talk about ANC elections today as if they are national elections. We are talking about a party that has been in governance for 18 years. And 90% of the policies adopted today or this week is a rehash of the policies of Polokwane. And that's why some of them acknowledge the challenge is implementation, it's not policy. Get education right. Possibly all else will follow.
Theo?
Yeah, I think...
What is Cyril Ramaphosa bringing
My impression of Cyril Ramaphosa, remember 16 years ago, he failed in his attempt. And then he went into business and all these kind of things. I think the one key characteristic of Cyril Ramaphosa is he's very, very adamant in what he's doing. He played a similar role during Kudesa. He played a similar role in generating the final constitution together with Leon Wessels. He delivered on both. I think there must have been behind the scenes arrangements, and I think it's not a question whether Cyril will get the space. I think he'll take the space.
Well, so we're going to move now to Kgalema Motlanthe. After failing in his bid for party president, he actually declined nomination for an NEC position. And in a departure from the norm, he was actually allowed. He thanked President Jacob Zuma for allowing him to do that, but he was allowed to address the delegates, and this is what he had to say.
Firstly, I would like to congratulate the leadership that we have just elected here. I wish them strength and wisdom as they lead us in uniting, firstly, the African National Congress and its leagues, the Alliance, and most important of all South Africans. But really, one thing alone needs to be said, and I want to say it with all the conviction of its truth. The African National Congress is the epitome of democracy. And so we must continue to champion democracy in our country and the world over. We must continue to lead our people in de-racializing the South African nation and ensuring that we eliminate sexism from our midst. We must continue to sharpen our ability to hear the cries of our people by attending to the economic challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. And by utilizing the mandate that has been given to us by our people to address these challenges. And I have full confidence in our leaders that indeed they will outdo themselves in leading us to address these challenges. Our leaders were elected by the entire membership of the African National Congress. And so as we continue with our deliberations in the commissions, we should keep that in mind, that we are doing this work under the watch and guidance of a very capable leadership that we have just elected. And lastly, I would like to thank the officials, particularly the President, for affording me the privilege to speak after he has spoken. Protocol ordinarily doesn't allow that. So I feel very privileged. And I want to thank you, delegates of the African National Congress. You've done us proud. Amanta.
What's going through your mind as you...
As you were speaking, I thought, I only hope this is not a valedictory speech, a farewell speech. I only hope.
Well, it does. It did sound like one.
And that would be extremely unfortunate.
Well, he has already declined nomination for, he declined serving on the NEC.
But that's immense talent, highly respected across the board. And behind him there are numbers, there are souls, there are human persons across the political spectrum. I would hope that the leadership will find it within itself to accommodate him and like-minded people like him in the spirit expressed by Trevor Manuel. There is talent, but somehow it feels alienated, repelled, isolated, yet it is desirous to contribute to the cause. There is talent within the ANC, but people are in the periphery because of the caustic environment. And I'm just re-echoing the sentiments of Cyril Ramaphosa. And I would
also
hope...
President Zuma said that, exactly that what needs to stop is exactly that.
Yeah, I think it's the end of a political career. I think he has done it in a dignified way, and he's done it in a stately way. And I think he has served the ANC well for a period of 10, 15 years. And I think the end of his political career really started when he served as president for 9 months. That did him a disservice. And I think he did it out of loyalty to the ANC and whatever followed. But I think that was the beginning of the end for him. And I can't see him returning to any other leadership position in the party.
At all?
No.
Prof, do you agree?
Yes, I do. But perhaps there is also a lesson we miss here. I have a sense that the man went into this election knowing fully well that he was going to lose. But there was a message he was trying to convey. But it can't be us at the helm of the party that puts down the rules of the game, protocols and procedures, and the same people violate them. And I think he said, I would rather step down with dignity than violate the rules. And history might judge me kindly. And perhaps in doing this, I might be sending a message that may help heal the wounds and make my party tender corner.
These are fundamental remarks made by my colleague, because I do agree there that his position was a very principled one.
Well, it's interesting that you're both saying that, because during the day I spoke to a couple of his aides. In large part wanted to find out whether they are ready to concede that they never had a campaign to begin with, but also what lay behind his stubbornness in wanting to play the game the way he played it, even though, anyone would have foreseen that that wasn't going to work. And what they told me was that they said, go back to an interview that you did back in January, where at the time, the ANC Youth League had already pronounced that this is the man we wanted. And this is what Kgalema Motlanthe had to say in an interview I had with him on the program on Sunday Live on SABC 1 back in January here in Mangaung.
ANC is being very stable, and that's reflected by the fact that for 100 years it has only had 12 presidents. That in itself is a sign of stability. And I believe that once you are elected, one of the lessons of the history, you've said history has been dealt with adequately. One of the lessons that I've drawn out of the history of the ANC is that you could never be elected to lead the ANC if you were not already a leader of one section or the other of the communities or population. Because first and foremost, delegates to conference can only elect you if they know of your capabilities from playing leadership or exercising leadership in whatever capacity. So once they elect you, I don't think, and this is a matter of principle, that you must never ever ask any other member of the ANC to nominate you or to elect you.
And you won't do that?
I won't do that, no, never.
And if they say do it?
That's why the ANC has processes and procedures that you are nominated. You have to, if you are to lead, if you are to be able to lead, you have to be elected by the will of the membership of the ANC. It mustn't be that you are being elected because you have canvassed and you have an efficient electioneering machinery, that kind of stuff. It shouldn't be, because if that be the case, tomorrow you will not be able to stand on a platform of the ANC with a clear conscience that, well, I am here to serve you because you are the ones who've asked me to serve in this capacity. You would not be able to do so because you would be indebted to your election managers or election machinery. So it shouldn't be done at all.
Prof?
Well, what more can one say? Safe to say, maybe this clip should be played and rehashed, even in the commissions. Beyond that, across the nation, principle stance when it comes to leadership matters. Never mind the resources you have. You must earn respect, and you earn respect through the process by which you end up at the helm of the organization.
The question I guess a lot of people will be asking is, where did that principle then leave the people who believe in him and who thought he could make a difference?
Yeah, see, that's a big challenge. That's where I think the thrust of the lessons lie. Because it's not about victory, right? It's about the principle. If with this stance, with the integrity with which I pursue my cause, you think I'm still worthy of your vote, so be it. But if I have to lose,
so be
and
it.
I stand by my principle, so be it. And I think he pushed it to the hilt, this matter. He did.
Yeah, it's a very principled position, but listening to that clip again, he sounds to me a little like a political romantic. Because these things only happen maybe in books. They don't happen in real life. Modern political parties are traders in power, political power. And if you've got the burning desire to get to the top, you will do a number of things to get there, which is within the rules of the game. But if you have a romantic view of these things, there was once a book written about rugby in South Africa, and the title was Nice Guys Come Second. And I've got that feeling about Motlanthe tonight, is that he was a nice guy and he paid for it.
Yeah, I mean, that was in January, on the 8th of January at the ANC's centenary celebrations here. And almost a year later, he never changed his stance. But the question is, could he, did he really want the job? If you remember, I mean, this is the same question that was asked of Obama when he couldn't come forward and actually really feel like demonstrate that he was hungry. He really wanted it. In other words, he didn't want to disappoint the people who were behind him. Did you get the impression at any point that he really wanted the job?
No, I didn't. But there's a different way that you deal with this in a leadership kind of thing. You have lobbyists. You've got people working for you and behind you that can, almost like agents do for artists, they can express those very personal, ambitious kind of things much better than you can. So a smart leader will not come out forthright and say, I want that job. Other people will say it on his behalf, but they must have the legitimacy and they must have the kind of courage to say it where it actually counts. And he can then play the smart role.
But then the impression I got, certainly from speaking to the couple of people I spoke to who were supporting him, is that he wouldn't even give them that space to do exactly what you're saying.
You see, there is Theo mentions that ANC modern political party. That's the advice, and that's really what they need to do. Accept that they are now playing a completely new trajectory and political space, then become a new political party. that would effectively say any man and any woman in the ruling party who feels he or she can lead the party would say a year or 2 years in advance and raise his hand and begin to canvass, and it should not be criminalized. So to that extent, I'm saying they're still operating, with a political theory that informed the liberation movement.
But one of the discussion groups will discuss organizational renewal. And there's the ANC is the driver of transformation in the country, broadly speaking. But the biggest transformation is within the party itself, moving from, let's call it a struggle-orientated liberation movement, and then over time, and that happened to all liberation movements all over the world, as you become part of a modern state structure, there's a necessity for you to transform into a modern political party. And that part is very slow. The ANC still works very strongly on its traditions, what is the right thing to do, what's the wrong thing to do. That is a challenge for the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, in his political report, President Jacob Zuma alluded to this and actually was talking about how the fact that you may have been in Angola and fought in the trenches is no longer as relevant as is service delivery and serving the people, delivering on their needs right now. He just said as much in his opening address.
But there's an argument about that. Does it take 1 generation or 2 generations for that to happen? We are basically at the end of the first generation. We are now entering the second generation. 18 to 20 years very often is regarded as a generation. So it's a very apt remark by the president that the ANC is actually entering that second generation.
Maybe I should just put a footnote to this point. I think in about 2002, the African National Congress of South Africa took a conscious decision to review the Electoral Act and its composition and modus operandus. The late Van Zyl Slabbert, charged with that, came up with a report. It's now 10 years on the shelves. The need was evident, critical and acute, and they wanted to transform. Why is it that they don't revisit that document? Again, because of contestation within the party.
Yeah, you're right.
So you can't say you need another 100 years to transform. They themselves recognize we have to move with speed to modernize. But when vested interests begin to inform otherwise, even the ideals that evidently would take them forward, and indeed I still maintain, if they were to act on some of those recommendations in there, they probably would move with speed and perhaps even find a way to heal the wounds. Open up the space, let men and women raise their hand and say, I want to lead this party, I have the wherewithal, and put up processes and procedures and sift them through until you remain with 1 or 2.
Well, one person who was one of, or if not the voice and face of the Kgalema Motlanthe campaign was Gauteng chairperson Paul Mashatile. We asked for his reaction as soon as the results were announced, and this is what he had to say.
Firstly, let me start by congratulating the winning team, but also to say to all other comrades who stood, also congratulations to them because they were responding to the call of the branches to stand. So it's a good thing. I think what we need to do now, we must not look at who are the losers and who are the winners. What we must do now is to say, how do we work together? The leadership that has been elected, those of us who were not elected but we are still there, how do we put our shoulders together to deal with the challenges of renewing the African National Congress, of addressing the problems of transformation in the country. One of the key issues that we'll be addressing here is the problem of poverty, unemployment, inequality in the country. It's something that all of us as leaders must focus our minds on.
Prof?
Yeah, very good sentiments. And I think what he's saying is what I think the SG said, the president said, and then the Deputy President Motlanthe said. I think they recognize they don't want to go through what they went through post-Polokwane. But what they lack is a program that they can immediately execute. If they're going to resort to rhetoric and they're not going to go down, filter down, right, to the remotest areas of South Africa where they have branches and inform them, it will remain an academic discourse at Luthuli House.
Well, we'll know whether that speech could have been done on behalf of Fikile Mbalula, it could have been done on behalf of Tokyo Segwale, it could have been Thandi Modise. We will know early in 2013 whether these nice words that they're now using during the conference is actually going to sustain. We'll have to look at the first appointment of a new cabinet, and then we'll know.
Well, we'll see. Well, among the people who were backing former ANC Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe were the ANC Youth League. They were the first to say it upfront that they wanted Kgalema Motlanthe for president. We caught up with Ronald Lamola, who is the Deputy President of the ANC Youth League, and this is how my conversation with him went. Mr. Lamola, not quite the outcome you would have wanted.
Yes, we wanted Kgalema Motlanthe to be the president of the ANC, but Congress has felt otherwise. We stood by what we believe in, and we have elected and even voted for Kgalema. But the Congress of the ANC has now resolved that President Zuma should be the president of the ANC for another 5 years, and they've also elected other people in the top 6. So we want to congratulate Comrade Zuma for being elected by the Congress, and we respect the outcome. But we also salute Comrade Kgalema for having stood to be the president of the ANC. He has stood against intimidation, many other things that he was told not to stand. But he has waited for a correct moment to confirm his availability. So for us, Comrade Kgalema is a living political manual that all of us as young soldiers and young comrades in the ANC should seek to emulate.
Now, I saw you earlier congratulating President Zuma as well as the other newly elected officials. Now, your relationship with President Zuma is far from ideal.
Yes, obviously our relationship is an organizational one. We are the Youth League. President Zuma knows that we had supported Kgalema. We went to him and told him that we respect the outcome. The branches of the ANC have spoken. As the youth wing of the ANC, we will respect the outcome, and we will call upon all our members to do the same. They must make their inputs inside the ANC. Nobody must leave. Young soldiers and the economic freedom fighters must fight inside the organization for what they believe in. What we just want from the newly elected leadership of the ANC is allow members and the youth of the ANC to think and not stop them from thinking, because the ANC need creativity to live for another 100 years. It cannot live with having the same ideas, having the same style, and having the same kind of an arrangement. So that's why for us, this Congress is about organizational renewal, but it's also about radical policy shift and change. And that's why we're going to participate in commissions and put forward what the Youth League has always been speaking about.
Now, well, given the margins, 75% on average, by which President Zuma and the rest of the officials have won, it's a very clear mandate. And one would in fact take it further to say the prospects of you winning those arguments, even at commissions, are slim, given the margin by which you were defeated.
I think that assertion will be incorrect, because structures of the ANC, branches and provinces might have disagreed with us on leadership, but the majority of them do agree with us on that we need a radical economic shift. Even when you look at the theme of the Congress, it's unity in action for socio-economic freedom. It's a theme that has been influenced by the ANC Youth League. Our last Congress was economic freedom in our lifetime. So it will not be a correct assertion. The only disagreement that we had with the structures was on the issue of the leadership. But many branches of the ANC are by themselves economic freedom fighters. You will be surprised. The nationalization is being spoken in the rural hinterlands of Umgungundlovu, in the rural areas of Guyana, in all sides of the country. So there is an acceptance in the structures of the ANC that things must not continue the way they've been done in the past 18 years. And I think as we go into commissions, there will be an outcome that reflects serious radical economic shift, and that also reflects the influence of the ANC Youth League in terms of strategic nationalization of certain assets, which we have already said which assets should be nationalized, but also in terms of the expropriation of land without compensation and the amendment of the Constitution, Section 25, the property clause.
Beyond this conference, what is the ANC Youth League going? In other words, what lessons have you learned from this process? What are you going to make sure that you don't repeat, and what are the things you may want to do differently to ensure that come the next conference you will have a different outcome that satisfies your needs more than is the case at the moment?
I think it's a moment for us for self-reflection and to ensure that we reposition the Youth League as a critical board of opinion in the ANC, which thinks through what it says and avoid insults, because at some stage there are those that have alienated certain people in the organization, is tactical mistakes of insulting certain people and so forth. So it's a moment for us to reevaluate ourselves and ensure that we continue with our radical and militant position in an organizational way, and we're going to do that, but also to ensure that our structures all over the country, they speak and deal with issues and campaigns of youth unemployment, they deal with issues and campaigns on youth development, they also deal with campaigns on education of the South African youth, because there is no way you can have economic freedom without having proper education and having a clear system that assists at the grassroots level and the education of the nation. So I think those are the issues that, as we move forward as the Youth League, that's where we must concentrate on and ensure that our constituency issues, youth unemployment and various issues that affect the youth, are issues that occupy our day-to-day lives.
Now, lastly and very briefly, you told me a couple of months ago when the last time we had an interview, that you were intending to bring before conference the issue of Julius Malema. Is that still the case, and do you have any hope that it's something that this conference will actually address?
Yes, that is the resolution of the Youth League, that the matter should be brought before conference, and it's an issue that we have not yet changed on that resolution. The only thing that has disappointed us is the fact that they themselves have decided to write a letter when they know that we are Congress delegates and we have capacity to raise the matter. So we feel that we have not been given space to exercise that particular resolution on our own and raise the issue at Congress. But we haven't changed that resolution. It's upon the Youth League delegation is not only Lamula, we are 45, and there are also many other Youth League members who are delegates from various provinces. It's not only an issue that can be raised by myself, everybody can raise it, and that's where it stands. We're just disappointed by the fact that they did not give us space to exercise it on their behalf in Congress.
Okay, notwithstanding what they have done, but do you still intend raising the issue?
We don't have a resolution that changed raising the issue. From our delegation, anybody can raise it, and as I've said, from anybody in Congress can do so. But
would you raise it if
the only
no one
appeal,
raises it?
The only appeal, no, everybody can raise it, because in plenary they send the men of plenary, you don't know who can be pointed. When they point anybody in plenary. They may point me, they may point anybody. So I may not be able to say with a matter of certainty that I will be the one raising the matter. But that is the only thing. We haven't changed anything. We will still make it a matter of Congress. So the only issue that we've raised is the fact that we feel that we should have been given space to deal with the matter at Congress.
Okay. Ronald Mola, Acting President of the ANC Youth League, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
Well, picking up on the last point,
Yes.
You were talking about the burning of the effigy just outside a couple of hours ago,
Correct.
which was a coffin, cardboard coffin of Julius Malema.
Correct. If there is anything that I hope the young men back home would learn, and others as well, is that in politics there are no permanent friends, no permanent enemies. And play by the rules and by those principles that today, tomorrow, and yesterday, you'll unashamedly uphold them. The Youth League didn't acquit itself well within itself, within its ranks, and even with the mother body. And most importantly, even across the political spectrum. And what you hear, you have raised this question 3 times, and the young man is evasive. He's getting the question. He doesn't want to commit himself as the leader to say, I'm going to raise it. Perhaps it was expedient for him that the letter didn't go to him, but it went somewhere. But one suspects there must have been some footwork, and there was no clarity or commitment that they would handle the matter. Hence, those suspended decided to face the mother body itself.
Well, if you take 2 points, it would appear that they are not interested.
Yeah.
Because if you take, he talks about those that alienated people and the tactical mistakes they made. He thought, you know, and add to that the fact that he didn't want to say whether he himself, if he was the only person left,
Absolutely.
he would raise that. And
this is a very good example. We must actually put it in a handbook of political spin. Because really, what he really
that living political manual is
what he really wanted to say was the people that we spoke about in this program, the new top 6, with them elected, the issue of Kgalema is dead in the water. I don't think they will entertain any such letters and things in this conference. And I think the Youth League is part of organizational renewal. They must rebuild themselves. And if you look at their constitution and the way in which they don't act like a league. They act like an autonomous body that is not within the ANC. I mean, it took Cyril Ramaphosa to tell them, you are under the discipline of the mother body. And that is a very serious part that the ANC will have to work on.
I appreciate that, if I may, Theo, but let us not pretend that what they were doing was something new. They were allowed to entrench it and make it almost as part of the culture of engagement. And there's also a view that the ANC Youth League has been a kingmaker from the day of Mandela in his youth when they removed Mroka and others. And then, fine, but there should always be an elder or elders responsible enough to guide and to nurture them. But don't say out of expediency, I'm not going to raise a voice. But when it is convenient, then I will. That's where they falter as the leadership of the party. However, I want to make a point that says they might, in the interest of reconciliation and rebuilding the party, open up a space along the highway of life to invite them back. You'll turn them into exile. We are a parent, I'm a parent. They add and they concede. After 12 months, I suspect in the spirit, and it might be Jacob Zuma himself leading the pack. Remember those who insulted him, went to cope, came back cap in hand. He said as a father, he embraced them.
So you think he might do that with them as well? Well, unlike the ANC Youth League, the ANC Women's League is finding itself today on the right side, so to speak. Well, I spoke to the Treasurer General of the ANC Women's League about the outcomes of today's conference, and this is how the discussion went. TG, I guess congratulations are in order, given that you played a role in the re-election of President Zuma. How do you feel as the Women's League?
Well, we're still overwhelmed, having just come out of the conference hall where results were announced. It was almost expected, but as he was announced, the reality dawned on us that, he is back to lead us for the next term again.
Take us back again to the discussions you had as the Women's League among yourselves when you're convincing each other on the need to vote for a particular candidate or group of people. What were the reasons advanced for deciding to continue with President Jacob Zuma?
I think most women felt that he's been visible, he has visited most communities, but also women were beginning to be worried about the kind of public space that were taking place, and there was a view that, look, we should be a voice of reason and ensure that the leadership is given a second chance, and also just to create stability so as to build the confidence from the public side.
If you were to give him a to-do list starting from tomorrow, what are the top 3 things that the Women's League would want him to deal with almost immediately?
Well, we want him to have a look, a serious and a critical look at our omnibus gender resolution that we have tabled before the ANC. You know, we've traced the resolutions of the ANC conferences as far back as 1991. Some of the issues that we're bringing to the fore, they've come up
over and over
again. So we would like the current leadership, and we believe in them, to really bring about a radical shift in the thinking about the implementation of these resolutions, especially when it comes to women and poverty. We believe this country has made some strides in terms of economic transformation policies. Women inclusion in the economy is absolutely crucial, and it cannot wait for a day.
And to someone who says you as much as you worked hard and you are happy with President Zuma and you wanted him to continue, that perhaps you missed an opportunity to include in your permutations or in your discussions with other people who were thinking along the same lines as you. You missed an opportunity to perhaps insist on a 50-50 representation on the top 6. 2 women, not bad, but still not good enough given your own pronouncements previously on the issue.
Well, you know, this process is complicated because you give your branches a mandate to start a process. And by the time it comes to regional conferences, provincial conferences, they've almost taken a position. And our NEC conference of the ANC Women's League was simply informed by what had emerged from the branches. And of course, the way they elected, they did that, us having made it clear to them as to what we're looking at. But of course, we're still counting on 50-50 representation across the whole leadership, not only the top 6. But what is even more important is to ensure that we send a clear message to our leadership, whom we have worked very hard for, that gender equality and women's empowerment should be top on their agenda.
Well, you are 5 years to the next conference now. So what are you going to do starting tomorrow to make sure that you prepare this time around for that conference that will take place in 5 years' time?
You know, the Secretary General said something in passing when he was opening up the conference, that Women's League should do more than just providing service at a community level, but you have to raise your agenda ideologically. I think we have work to do in terms of engaging our structures and ensuring that we have a common understanding that women leadership is not a nice thing to have. It's something essential, so as to bring and inject this organization with different values and different ways of thinking and of doing things.
Well, I'm sure a lot of women will be looking up to you, to actually hoping that you will indeed deliver on that promise. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you. The struggle continues. Thank you.
The struggle continues. Well, before I ask you both to comment on the statements that she made, I want us to take very briefly also COSATU General Secretary Zwelinzima Vavi's reaction to today's events. Here's what he had to say.
Things moved. He is no longer the General Secretary of the NUM. And I even borrowed from what Marxism says, that Marxism tells us that it is the material conditions of a man that dictates their conscience. And so we know that today he is a capitalist, and he's a billionaire, and that he represents another class interest, no longer the interest of the mine workers that he helped engineer a new organization for. And I then said that he is elected as a collective, part of the collective leadership of the ANC. His responsibility is to the policies of the ANC and not to those of business or of himself as a businessman. And we hope that what he will advance will be the policies of the ANC as they will be adopted in this conference as they exist historically, including all the 10 demands of the Freedom Charter.
Comments there. ANC Women's League to President Jacob Zuma, COSATU to ANC Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa. Your closing comments?
Yeah, I hope, in the spirit of Martin Luther King, that my country and related countries will move with speed to begin to look at merit rather than the color of the skin, nor gender. Joyce Banda is the president of Malawi because of ability, not because of a gender. Salif is the same. Barack Obama is in that office because of merit. Yes, we have had historical challenges, but if indeed you want to transform and move forward, let's put merit at the center, including women contesting and assuming office precisely because of ability rather than quotas.
I agree with that. But I would like to add, Baleka Mbete was introducing Kgalema Motlanthe a week or two ago in Potchefstroom, where they had the last of the 12 lectures.
Yes.
And she said tongue-in-cheek when she introduced him that he is, Jacob Zuma is the 12th leader of the ANC, all being male. So they already start developing that kind of ability to say these things in public. But I think the General Secretary's report on the Women's League wasn't very kind. I think they need to pick up their work. And I think Mr. Vavi, his remarks is more kind of putting a context to Cyril Ramaphosa. But I think it's typically Vavi. It's neither here nor there.
Prof. Theo, thank you very much for joining us this evening. It was an interesting discussion indeed in what was a really very eventful day, and the day that all of us were looking forward to. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, and that is where we're going to leave it for this evening. Don't forget, tomorrow we will be bringing you there were nominations. Today, over 200 names were submitted of people who are running for the 82 or so positions of the National Executive Committee. The outcome of that we will hear about tomorrow. Dateline Mangaung continues again, same time between 10 and 11 tomorrow evening. But Morning Live will start the day tomorrow morning, bringing you the latest and the things that have happened overnight. So will the midday or lunch hour bulletins across our channels. So until then, good night.